Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most secretive and, let's be honest, ambitious labs on the entire planet, X, which is Alphabet's Moonshot Factory. We're going to dig into what they actually do, how they think, and most importantly, what it really takes to join their team of innovators who are trying to solve the world's biggest problems.
You know, this quote from Eugenie Rives, who's a managing director over at X, really gets to the heart of what makes this place so magnetic. It's not just another R&D lab, right? It's built on a totally different kind of ambition, and it attracts a really unique kind of person.
Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to break this down into 5 key parts. First, we'll figure out what a moonshot even is. Then, we'll get into their core 10X philosophy. After that, we'll look at their kind of radical approach to failure. Then, we'll explore the kind of team that actually thrives there. And finally, we'll chart a potential path for you to get there.
So, first up, what exactly is the Moonshot Factory? I mean, the name itself comes from the idea of a moonshot, but it's way more than just a big idea. It's a whole specific formula, a recipe for radical innovation.
They are literally taking a page from President Kennedy's playbook, his challenge to land a man on the moon. It's all about setting a goal that seems completely impossible today and then having to invent the science and tech to actually make it happen.
Now, this slide is super important because it's their secret filter. To even get considered, a project has to check all 3 of these boxes, no exceptions. It's got to tackle a massive global problem. It has to need some kind of radical new technology, stuff that probably doesn't even exist yet. And the solution itself has to sound like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's an incredibly high bar, and that is completely by design.
And Waymo is the perfect example of this formula in action. I mean, think about it. It tackles a huge problem: transportation safety, traffic, access for everyone. It required breakthrough AI that was pure theory at the time. And the solution? A car with no steering wheel that just drives itself? That was 100% science fiction when they started.
So this whole moonshot criteria, it leads directly into their core philosophy. Because look, if you want to create moonshots, you can't just make small, tiny improvements. You have to fundamentally change how you think.
At X, the big mantra is think 10x, not 10%. Making something 10% better means you're just tweaking the current system. But if you aim for a 10 times improvement, well, that forces you to just throw out the old rulebook and start with a completely blank page.
To really get this 10x thinking, the head of X, Astro Teller, uses this fantastic analogy. So let me ask you, if this was your job, where would you start? If you're like most of us, you'd probably start building the pedestal. It's the easy part, right? A quick win you can check off the list.
But X flips that logic completely on its head. The whole key is to focus on the monkey. You have to tackle the hardest, the riskiest, the most uncertain part of the problem first. Because, let's be real, if you can't teach that monkey to recite Shakespeare, it doesn't matter how amazing your pedestal is. The project is a total bust. It's actually a great framework for your own life. Find the biggest uncertainty and attack that first.
And this whole tackle the monkey first approach, it leads right into one of the most counterintuitive and honestly fascinating parts of X's culture, a deep, profound embrace of failure.
Okay, so just look at this number for a second. 90%. In a place that's totally dedicated to world-changing success, what on earth could this possibly represent?
Believe it or not, that's the percentage of projects that get shut down in their early stages. And the crucial thing to understand here is that this isn't seen as failure. It's actually viewed as a sign of a really efficient, healthy process that weeds out the dead ends fast so all those brilliant resources can flow to the ideas that might actually change the world.
And get this, they actually put their money where their mouth is. As Eugenie Rives says, teams can get big bonuses for killing their own projects. It's a brilliant move because it helps fight that sunk cost fallacy. You know, that feeling that you have to keep going just because you've already put so much time and energy in. Instead, it frees people up for the next great idea. So you have to wonder, what kind of person actually thrives in this environment of successful failure? A place where their project has a 90% chance of being deliberately shut down. Well, that brings us to the X-Team mindset.
Is so interesting. It's not just about what you already know. It's about your willingness to completely let it go. They bring in these world-class experts and then ask them to basically unlearn their expertise, to come at problems with a beginner's mind. Kind of like an artist who has to master all the rules just so they know how to break them perfectly.
And because they're tackling these massive global problems, the teams are just radically diverse. And I don't just mean in background, but in profession. You'll literally find philosophers and artists working right alongside engineers and roboticists. Why? Because a complex problem needs to be seen from every single possible angle to find that one breakthrough that no one else saw.
Okay, this might be the most unusual part of the X mindset. Professional growth is tied directly to personal breakthroughs. Leaders will openly share what they're working on. Like, a manager might stand up and say, "My goal this quarter is to stop being a micromanager." That level of vulnerability, it builds an insane amount of trust, and it makes the team so much stronger and more resilient.
All right, let's bring this all home. If you're sitting there thinking, this sounds like my dream job, how can you actually put yourself in a position to get a role at a place like X? Well, let's look at Eugenie Reeves' own journey.
Her story is it's a masterclass in persistence. She knew she wanted to work at X, but they flat out told her there wasn't a role for her. So what did she do? She wrote her own job description and pitched it to them. They said no, but she didn't give up. And 3 years later, they called her back and hired her for the exact role that she had invented for herself. The lesson there is huge. A no isn't always the end, and sometimes you have to create your own opportunity.
So the biggest takeaway from her advice is this: getting a job at a place like X is about so much more than your technical skills. It's about your mindset. Let's break it down. First, follow your joy. This isn't just some fluffy advice. In a place where most projects are designed to fail, joy in the actual work is the fuel that keeps you going. Next, be curious. This ties right back to that 10x thinking. You have to be obsessed with learning, always exploring new things, because that's where breakthrough ideas come from. And finally, be bold. This is non-negotiable. You have to have the guts to pitch your crazy ideas, to ask for that ambitious role, and to be okay with hearing no, because it's just part of the process.
And this really brings us to one last thought. The biggest lesson from inside the Moonshot Factory might be something we can all apply to our own lives. We all have these big, audacious goals, right? So the question is, are you spending all your time building the easy, safe pedestal? Or are you brave enough to finally start working on the monkey?